Hey everyone, it's Marvin. If you think the US needs better representation for minorities, especially during this election season, then you should check out The Future of Our Former Democracy, the chart-topping history podcast from More Equitable Democracy and Large Media. Each week on The Future of Our Former Democracy, hosts George Chung and Colin Cole dive into what our democracy could look like if we left behind our current winner-take-all model and embraced a fairer, more proportional system. If you need somewhere to start on this podcast, I recommend listening to the first episode where George discusses how his identity as a queer Asian American fueled his activism and commitment to social justice. Follow The Future of Our Former Democracy wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to Whoa! Potluck.
And hey everyone, welcome to Books and Boba, a book club and podcast featuring books by Asian and Asian American authors. My name is Marvin Yue.
And I'm Rira Yu.
And we are here for our October mid-spooky month book news check-in, where we go over the latest Asian American publishing and book news. As always, Books and Boba is supported in part by our listeners. So if you'd like to become a bigger part of our podcast, head on over to patreon.com/booksandboba, where as a Patreon supporter, you can gain access to our members-only Discord server, as well as bonus podcasts. So definitely hope to see more of you over there. We have a pretty hefty list this month.
It kind of makes up for the last mid-month episode. It was a little bit light, and
and we also have some cool news to go through too. So it's going to be a good episode. So let's get right into it. As always, we start off our mid-month episodes by reviewing some of the latest publishing announcements from Asian and Asian American authors. Rira, why don't you start us off with the first book deal?
All right. So Roaring Brook Press acquired North American rights to Kingdom of Waves, a YA fantasy novel by Melissa de la Cruz. When two thieves from the brutal kingdom of Lakon go after the same treasure, a mythical prize that could change their lives forever, their worlds and hearts suddenly collide. Publication is scheduled for winter 2026.
This sounds like a lot of fun. Always love a good story about two rival thieves trying to one-up each other, kind of like a spy versus spy thing, and add in some enemies to romance. This sounds like it'll be a delightful romp.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the title, Kingdom of Waves. I'm like, oh, is this like a pirate book in a way? So it sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. And of course, another feather in the cap of Melissa de la Cruz, one of our most prolific writers. I feel like every few months there's a new Melissa de la Cruz book in our mid-month review. But as always, congrats to Melissa on her new book deal. Next up, Henry Holt bought at auction North American rights to One World, Six Letters by Adib Khorram. Told in two voices, the YA novel explores the repercussions of a ninth grader's impulsive decision, which changes his classmates' lives and forces a school community to examine the boundaries between mistakes and bad choices, fear and apologies, justice and healing. Publication is set for winter 2026.
Yeah, so we've read Adib Khorram's book before. We've read Darius the Great is Not Okay back in 2019. It was one of my favorite books that we read for our book club discussions. Yeah,
I mean, trying to think, there's so many possibilities of what this six-letter word is. And I am not going to say any of them on this podcast. But I think it's a good, exploration of, kids make mistakes, but how much of those mistakes are learned from the home, ingrained in society. I think Adib is definitely a great person to explore these themes in novel form.
Yeah, ninth graders' impulsive decision. There can be so many options, so many results that can end up disastrously. So yeah. Sounds like a very relatable teen read. All right, so our next book deal is Little Brown bought at auction Never Ever After by Su Lin Tan, the author of Daughter of the Moon Goddess. And this is her YA debut. This fantasy romance is inspired by a Chinese fairy tale in which a girl must defy fate to vanquish a villainous Prince Charming. Publication is planned for fall 2025.
Yeah, always love a Uno reverse fantasy romance, right?
Yeah, I just love the term villainous Prince Charming because villains are usually charming. So it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the best villains think they're the heroes of their own story, right? And, this is still marketed as a romance. So I'm wondering if this will be the type of thing where, she teams up with like the bandit king or bandit rogue. And, the bad guy we meet in the first act turns out to be the good guy doing crimes for good reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to know. I'm curious to learn what the Chinese fairy tale it's inspired by. But, congratulations to Su Lin Tan. This sounds like a very fun read.
Yeah. All right. Next up, learner Carol Roda acquired North American English rights to Candy Gourlay's YA historical novel, Wild Song, which won the National Children's Book Award of the Philippines. Adventurous and rebellious 16-year-old Luki leaves her home in U.S.-occupied Philippines to travel to the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis, discovering both the wider world and the true value of the home she's left behind. Publication is set for fall 2025. Yeah, so the 1904's World's Fair in St. Louis, I believe this is the World's Fair where they shipped in an entire Filipino, like Aboriginal village to show off as a living exhibit of like savage life in the Philippines. And what an interesting topic for a children's book. But, it's never too early to teach our kids about the effed up ways colonialism has like viewed our home countries, right?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people forget that the U.S. military did occupy the Philippines, because when we think about colonization of the Philippines, we think, the Spanish and also the Japanese. So it's like, no, the Americans were there too. And we did do a lot of disgusting things. So yeah, it's interesting that this is a book that is about a 16-year-old, because I'm like wondering, like at that age when you're from like a country like the Philippines, what does the West look like to you?
Yeah, I mean, we did explore these themes in one of our past book club picks, The Imaginary Lives of James Poneke, which focused on a Maori youth who also left home to become part of a living exhibit. And, I kind of feel like there would be similar themes here where, the Western colonial powers like to present themselves as, cosmopolitan, civilized, where all the culture is. And it sounds like this book explores those themes of like the portrayal of Western powers as superior compared to the reality, and maybe even have a conversation about what being civilized actually means, right?
Yeah, definitely an interesting topic to explore in a children's book. And it's great that it's already won an award in the Philippines. So Homeland already has a stamp of approval on it. Okay, so our next book deal is Story Publishing acquired world rights to the nonfiction graphic novel Ask the Doctor 75 Wacky and Wise Health Questions from Curious Kids, written by Betty Choi and illustrated by Jannie Ho. A pediatrician answers kids' most pressing questions about the weird stuff their bodies do and what happens when they get sick in this Q&A with comic explanations. Publication is planned for winter 2026. Where was this book when we were kids?
Yeah, imagine all the young hypochondriacs who like could have used this book to like answer all their questions, right?
Well, it's because our parents never answered our questions. Like, I don't know. It was just like, when you're sick, it's like, oh, just have this medicinal herb. And it's like, we don't even know what that actually does to us. And like, my parents never talked to me about like my period or puberty or anything like that. So this sounds like a really helpful book for parents out there and also kids, but mostly parents, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a good thing to have a book that explains, what codes are, how medicine works, so that parents actually have answers when kids ask them things instead of just like, brushing them off, because not all of us can have a doctor on dial to explain things to our kids all the time.
I'm just thinking about the questions that the kids will come up with, being like, why are there 2 holes in our bodies, or like why do we get cavities, or like they probably come up with like very, very weird questions. I can't even imagine them because I'm an adult and I'm cynical, but yeah, I feel like they're gonna ask very, very funny questions. Yeah, I wonder what the pediatrician, like, I feel like pediatric nurses and pediatricians, they have such a, I mean, it's a very hard job, but it's also like very fun because kids are so unpredictable. And Yeah, I feel like this book is going to be pretty fun to read.
Yeah, looking forward to checking it out. All right, our next book deal. Catherine Teagan Books acquired Don't Eat Eustace by author-illustrator Lian. A hungry bear fishing for dinner reels in a particularly talkative fish named Eustace, and Eustace has much bigger entrepreneurial plans for bear than a fish dinner. Publication is planned for 2025.
So does this fish have like a PowerPoint presentation being like, oh, it's not-
Yeah, I mean, what kind of entrepreneur is this fish? Are they into hustle culture, right? I can see this going like two different ways. One is like the fish using economic business models to convince the bear to go a different route, right? Eat a different type of food, maybe start a jam company, right? Or, the more cynical take, and I'm pretty sure this is not where the book is going, which is more of like a teach a man a fish type of thing, where the fish shows the bear that it's much more profitable to start a fish business and shows him a way to eat all the other fish in the sea.
Yeah, that is a little bit cynical, but we are adults. This sounds really fun. And yeah, like having a talkative fish being like, don't eat me. There's a better deal in it for you. I don't know. It's it's quite slick. All right, so our next book deal is Emily Bestler Books acquired world rights to The Incredible Kindness of Paper by Evelyn Skye, the author of The 100 Loves of Juliet. This contemporary love story follows a woman who's just lost her job as she launches a project to spread kindness in New York City through inspirational messages folded inside origami roses, only to inadvertently begin an anonymous epistolary exchange in the paper flowers with her first and lost love. Publication is set for 2025.
This sounds really sweet, but like a part of me, like alarm bells are going off, that it kind of has a kind of a bittersweet twinge to it.
Like, this is reminding me of this one book that was turned into a movie with Amanda Seyfried, and they find like secret letters in like a brick wall in Italy, and it's like, I don't know, there's like something romantic about love notes or just like words of kindness hidden in letters, and like in here origami roses. I feel like in the digital age we've kind of like lost that romance, so yeah, I can see like why this would be like a really good setup for a romance.
Yeah.
And of course I just love the idea of like an anonymous person and you're sharing all of your inner feelings with them through written word.
Yeah, and it's such a interesting setup to have, like, you just lost your job. What do? Let's start a anonymous inspirational message project. Let's not throw ourselves back into the capitalist machine, and let's just spread some good vibes to New York City, a city that needs some good vibes sometimes. All right, next up, Knopf acquired North American rights to Wendy Liu's debut middle-grade contemporary novel, Casting April. Pitched as The Chance to Fly meets stand-up Yumi Chung, the book features April, a talented disabled girl who loves all things Broadway and will do anything for a chance at the spotlight, even if it means stretching the truth. In a story about friendship, identity, and the masks we wear, both in real life and on stage. Publication is set for summer 2026.
I love it. As someone who loves seeing musicals and plays, I love theater kids in stories. So this sounds like a really fun book. And I love how the character is a disabled girl who, loves Broadway, because Broadway is not necessarily very welcoming to people who have disabilities. I know that Spring Awakening, when they did like their relaunch, they had people in wheelchairs, people who did sign language for the songs. So there has been more progress, but still there's not a lot of space for people who are disabled and neurodivergent. So this sounds like a really important book.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder what type of disability the main character will have. It seems to be something that she can mask, right? So
yeah.
Which is interesting, yeah, because these types of stories, it's not unfamiliar in the world of like coming of age literature. In order to fit in, you pretend to be something you're not, and it all comes crashing down when everything's revealed. And we all learn a lesson about being true to ourselves. And so I think it's pretty cool to see this canon expand to include all sorts of other identities as well. So yeah, really excited to learn more about this book. Congrats to Wendy on her book deal.
All right, next up, Little Brown picked up North American rights to Accidentally on Purpose, the debut memoir by chef and restaurateur and Top Chef host Kristen Kish. The memoir will offer readers an intimate look into her life, detailing the unexpected journey that took her from her childhood as a Korean adoptee in the Midwest to being the season 10 winner and current Emmy-nominated host of Top Chef. Publication is set for April 2025.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Top Chef is one of my favorite shows, so I'm always excited to see people from Top Chef put out new work. Kristen Kish is a great personality. She's actually been one of the more active former Top Chef winners, having started her own career in hosting. She's hosted a season of Iron Chef. She has a travel show, and now hosting the show proper. So really cool to be able to learn more about her life, especially her experiences as a Korean American adoptee.
Yeah, I mean, this sounds like your book, Marvin. So,
I mean, it does, but I'm also not a big memoir reader, so I don't know.
Not even for Kristen Kish?
I mean, I will say, Kristen Kish being the author does pique my interest. And, I did read No Reservations by Anthony Bourdain, so I'm not unfamiliar with food-related memoirs. So, yeah, I mean, her being involved definitely makes this much more interesting for me. And, I'll probably pick up this book.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a book signing in LA... you'll definitely go. Yeah, I can see you there.
Yeah. So congrats to Kristen on all her success and especially on this new book deal. Okay. Next up, Mira acquired world English rights to Gloria Chao's adult debut, The Ex-Girlfriend Murder Club. The book follows 3 women who discover they're dating the same guy and band together to prank him only to discover his body. With motive and a crime scene covered in their DNA, they must now solve his murder before they go down for it. Publication is set for June 2025.
So Gloria Chao, we've had her on the show before. We talked to her about her book, When You Wish Upon a Lantern. She's also the author of American Panda. And wow, what a pivot from her young adult fluffy romance stories. I love it because I love murder. So
yeah, I mean, this sounds like the type of book that she's been waiting to write, right? Like you write enough fluffy YA rom-coms, you're gonna want to write some unhinged murder mystery, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of John Tucker Must Die and just like that 2000s grim humor. So I'm all on board to read this book.
Yeah, always great to see Gloria on our list and excited to see her debut as an adult fiction writer.
Also, I will as someone who watches a lot of true crime docs and read into a lot of murder mysteries, I will be looking at how well they're going to be able to solve this guy's murder, I'll keep an eye on how they Poirot it. Okay, next up, Little Bee Books bought world rights to Schooltime Grumps, written by Katrina Moore and illustrated by Xindi Yan. The picture book is about Daisy dealing with her schoolmates' grumpiness at her overeagerness to make new friends, with the help of her grandpa. Publication is scheduled for summer 2026. I would definitely be the schoolmate that is grumpy at someone who is overeager to be my friend. I was definitely that classmate in
Even when
school.
you were a little kid, sitting in first grade, second grade?
Oh yeah. I'm a very introverted, shy person. So whenever someone is very much the opposite of me and try to get me involved in stuff, I'm like, I don't want to be friends with you. But then I end up friends with them reluctantly. And a lot of my high school friends are those people. And we joke saying you reluctantly became our friend because we didn't give up on you. And I'm like,
I guess the question now is, as an adult, do you regret your giving in, or are you happy that they didn't give up?
I honestly don't know, because there are times when they drive me absolutely crazy. So.
All right. Well, to be seen.
What about you? Were you very much an extrovert in school, being I want to be your friend?
Yeah, I am an extrovert in that, I gain energy by hanging out with people. But I was also a shy kid, so I probably would wait for you to initiate conversation, and then we would become friends. But very rarely was I the initiator. So that props to my friends who, reached out first. And a lot of them I'm still friends with today. So I'm very glad for that. All right. Moving on to our next deal. In a preempt, Quirk Books bought world rights to Gay the Prey Away, a YA novel by award-winning audiobook narrator Natalie Naudus. In a story inspired by the author's own experiences, an Asian American teen longs to break free of the conservative Christian cult she's been raised in as she falls in love with the new girl in town. Publication is scheduled for spring 2025.
Yeah, the title, Gay the Prey Away. I love it because the mantra is usually pray the gay away. And of course, that doesn't freaking work. But a lot of Asian American Christian communities believe that, you can do that. And it's like, no.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't grow up religious and I don't really have a lot of religious friends. So my interactions with like Christianity and church has always been on the periphery, on the outside. And I know there are a lot of different churches out there and not all of them are culty, but sometimes like the culty ones feel really culty. And when you see them pop up on like the news or social media, somehow it feels like it's always an Asian one.
I feel like there's a lot of cults within the Asian churches. I feel like because of our patriarchal hierarchy, it kind of like gets tangled up with a lot of the conservative Christian patriarchy stuff, and it's just like it's just a very bad toxic environment that like trains you to be fearful of going to hell all the time. And when you're a teen and you're constantly told that like being gay is not okay, like having romantic relationships before like your pastor approves of it, you're going to hell. It's not a great place to be.
Yeah, so it's cool that the story is about like breaking free of that, right? Kind of like Footloose, but instead of dance, it's being gay.
Yeah. I forgot what movie this was, but it was like, there are like camps and programs parents would send their kids to. Like,
are you talking about But I'm a Cheerleader?
Yeah, But I'm a Cheerleader. It kind of reminds me of that. Only our main character hopefully does not get sent to
a conversion camp. Yeah.
Conversion camp. Yeah. Christian cults love conversion camps. All right, so next up we have Make Me a World has acquired world rights to Jeong is Jeong, a debut picture book written by Jessica Yoon and illustrated by Michelle Lee. The book is about a girl and her grandmother who spend a day learning the nuances of the Korean word Jeong in a social emotional journey of love, kindness, and understanding that explores the not quite translatable parts of a bilingual family. Publication is planned for spring 2026.
So what is Jeong?
So I would say it's kind of the opposite of Han. So we are very familiar with Korean Han. Like Koreans are known for their grudges, the sadness and anger that they have passed on with each generation from like colonial times with the Japanese and all just like the violence that is just soaked in our history. But Jeong is, I don't know, it's just like this instant connection and respect that you have with someone. Like you see a part of yourself in them, and immediately it just knocks down this wall. Like an example would be, like when Koreans are like traveling abroad, they run across another Korean. Immediately there will be Jeong because it's like, wow,
yeah,
like you're here. We share this like bond already.
I kind of get it. It's like when I go to like conferences where it's majority white, and I find the table with like the people of color, and it's like we make eye contact and we instantly know that we can talk to each other and not feel awkward.
I mean, you can also have Jeong for someone who you don't like. It could be a rival, and it's just like we have Jeong because I respect the hustle. I respect like their hard work, even though they're my direct competition. There is like this reluctant respect for them. So yeah, it is very hard to translate. I don't think I did a good job translating it for you guys, but
it's a vibes thing, right? It's a word that describes like a vibe, the vibe you get from finding someone that
gets you.
Yeah. So in that frame, I do get it. I do understand. So congrats to Jessica and Michelle on their book deal. All right, for our last deal of the episode, Anik Press acquired in an exclusive submission world rights to The Legendary Allies, a contemporary fantasy chapter book series by Linda Trinh, illustrated by Quinn Anh Nguyen. The 4-book series follows a team of adventuresome kids and their ally animals inspired by Vietnamese mythical creatures, the phoenix, the land, the turtle, and the dragon. The team is chosen to complete quests to further social justice in the magical land of Van Lang and must learn to work together. Publication of the first book, The Healer and the Phoenix, is set for winter 2026.
Okay, so I had to look up what Lian is because I was like, I don't recognize that animal in like our Asian culture, and it's kind of like an Asian unicorn, but it's not a unicorn in a sense that it's a horse with a horn. It looks more like a like how it looks kind of like a Chinese lion or like a griffin.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Wikipedia and it looks like it's based on the Chinese word qiling, which is a mythical creature that's also found in Japanese mythology.
The cardinal animals, right?
No, it's not one of the cardinal guardian animals. It's more just like a mythical creature that's like a mix between a dragon and like a horse.
Okay, yeah, I've seen similar statues in Korea. We do have something similar.
Yeah, I feel like it all stems from like the same set of regional mythologies. But I think for most people, you're probably most familiar with the Kirin as the logo for the Japanese beer Kirin.
Well, we already learned something from from just reading about this book.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of Pokemon. Because like kids with their ally
like
animals.
Pokemon or Digimon or any fantasy series where kids have like animal familiars, right?
Yeah, I'm glad that this is a series. I feel like there's a lot of stories that can be told through these familiars and, would love to get to know them a little bit better.
Yeah, and love that we also are learning about Vietnamese mythology and legends as well. So that's always cool to see in literature for younger readers. So congrats again to Linda and Quinn on their book deal.
So that wraps up our book deals portions of this episode. We're going to move on to book news, and we have one really big piece of news that we're going to cover in 2 parts. So Han Kang won the 2024 Nobel Prize in Literature on October 10th. And the Academy commended her for her intense poetic prose that confronts historical traumas and exposes the fragility of human life. She is one of only 18 women to be awarded this honor, and she's also the first Asian woman and the first South Korean writer to win a Nobel Prize in Literature. And for those of you who are familiar with Han Kang's work, you'll recognize her for The Vegetarian, Greek Lessons, and Human Acts. She also has like another book in the pipeline. I forgot what it was called, but she achieved international acclaim after The Vegetarian was translated into English. The Vegetarian came out in 2007 in Korea, but it was finally translated into English in 2016. And that was the year when the book won the 2016 Man Booker International Prize. And I feel like her book really kickstarted this interest in Korean literature. And I feel like a lot of acclaimed Korean literature began to get translators for them. And we've seen them like reach really, really high popularity. We've had Anton Her, the translator of I Want to Die But Eat Tteokbokki, on our show to talk about like how translation has become kind of an art in like the literary space, because before it wasn't really considered something that was really important. Because it's just like why would English readers be interested in Korean culture and Korean stories? They're not going to get it. But it's like, but if it's translated, people will read it and people will feel something.
Yeah, I mean, Hong Kong's been an author that's, her book's been on our list of potential book club picks for a very long time. And we're just kind of trying to find the right time and place to read one of her books, because not only do they deal with difficult and sometimes unsettling themes, they're also her books are books that you need to really sit down and read. They're books that you need to put in the effort, right?
I mean, it's poetic, sparse, and there's like this deep sadness in her prose. And I really do want to read her books in its original language, because there are just some things, even if you're like very, very good at translating, there are things that will be lost in translation. So I really do want to read it in Korean. Her book, Human Acts, I think that was like, The Vegetarian really kickstarted her international career, but Human Acts, like, I've heard so much about it in the literary sphere. It is a book that examines the 1980 massacre of hundreds of civilians, mostly student protesters, by the South Korean military in the city of Gwangju. And her other book, We Do Not Part, looks at the 1948 to 1954 massacre on Jeju Island. These are topics that are highly sensitive to the Korean government. And obviously, those two books were kind of not recommended by the government. She was kind of blacklisted for a while, but that made people want to read her more. So
yeah, when Hong Kong was announced as the winner, I saw a lot of celebration in like literary Twitter, because apparently she beat out Murakami.
Yeah. I mean, like, the running joke is like the Japanese folks, they wait for Murakami to finally win this award, but he never wins. And I mean, do you remember like a couple of years ago, I think it was 2017, Kazuo Ishiguro won, and Japan was just like, oh, he's Japanese, but he's also British. So I guess we kind of win. But it was like a really big deal, because Han Kang is, once again, like, she is the first Asian woman to win this award. And there's only been 18 women in total winning this award. So it's like, yeah, the Korean literary community, it's filled with a lot. It's very male dominated. And for a long time, they've kind of dismissed her work. And, you know, it's kind of like, oh, well, she is not as good as other male writers. But it's like, well, look at her. She won a Man Booker Prize, and now she won a Nobel Prize in literature.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they must be so conflicted, because like national pride dictates that they be happy about this. But I'm sure like they're also not happy that this woman that they've dunked on for years received like this really high honor, right?
Yeah. Also, like, I heard some discourse from people saying like, oh, she shouldn't have won. Her translator should have won. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. I mean, I feel like there should be an award for translators, but, you know, for Nobel Prize in literature, like, let's give it to the author.
Yeah, I feel like some people just find any excuse when it's like a result that they're not like 100% behind. But I did read up on some of the discourse on this, and she actually declined all press conferences, right?
Yeah, so she released a statement through her father, who's also like a very well-known novelist. So his name is Han Sung-woo. And he he held a press conference on behalf of his daughter. It was a very small one. And he said, my daughter does not want to celebrate and hold a joyous press conference when there are wars in Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine. Like, how can, you know, she was pretty much saying, like, people are dying. How can I celebrate this award amidst all of that? So she had asked like the literary community and like also like her friends to not like make a big party out of it. But of course, like, her dad was just like, I'm like so proud of my daughter. I need to like at least say something, you know?
Yeah, definitely a real one. But I also like appreciate the dad being like super excited. But I don't know if this is like the dad doing it against her wishes or saying that
no,
we gotta like celebrate a little bit, right?
It's like we gotta like release a statement to the press, you know, they're expecting you to address them. It's like, well, I don't really want a press conference, but if we do have to say something, yeah, go ahead. You're my dad.
Yeah, so I'm hoping this award will finally kick our butts in the gear and finally get one of her books onto our podcast as a book club pick. Which one do you think we should do?
Okay, well, I don't want to do The Vegetarian because I've already read it, and I would prefer to read another piece of work and analyze it. Possibly Greek Lessons. I feel like it's... I mean, most people read The Vegetarian and Human Acts, so it'd be nice to read something that's like kind of off, like kind of under the radar in her bibliography. So
yeah, well, no promises on when this will happen, but I think it's time. So congrats to Hong Kong on the win. Haruki, you'll get them next time. Although we'll probably won't read any of your books ever
again. I hope not. No, I think longtime listeners will know my distaste for Murakami. And you know what's really funny? I found out about this news because BTS's RM posted it on his Instagram, and I was like, wait, what? Like the Nobel Prize like ceremony was happening today? I didn't know. And wow, like Han Kang won? Like that's crazy. So thank you, BTS, for
keeping us
literary news to me.
Breaking news from BTS. That's your number one source of literature news.
I mean, RM is the reason why I Want to Die, but I Want to Eat Tteokbokki became like such a big phenomenon in the American public because he recommended it on his list of book recs. People started to like pick it up. I mean, Anton talked about this in our episode, so go check out that episode. It was a really fun talk.
For sure.
I'm always on top of my BTS news, so when they release other news on top of it, I'm like, okay, cool.
That's amazing. All right, so for our last story on this mid-month episode, we have some new adaptation news. Lionsgate TV has optioned R.V. Kuang's novel Yellowface to develop as a scripted series, which is very exciting news. Currently, Karen Kusama has been attached to it as a director and executive producer. Karen is best known for directing feature films like Destroyer, The Invitation, and Jennifer's Body. And she also earned an Emmy nomination for an episode of Showtime's Yellow Jackets. And for extra Asian American flavor, Constance Wu's production company, Temple Wubata Productions, is also set to be a producer.
Yeah, I mean, like we knew from the get-go that Yellowface was going to be made into a screen adaptation of some sorts, because how can they not? It's just like so perfect for TV and film. And I saw jokes going around in like on book Twitter, people being like, oh, who should they cast as Juniper? Should they get Emma Stone or Scarlett Johansson? And I'm like, oh my God, that would be such a great casting choice, but I don't think they're going to go that route.
I mean, the ironic thing would be that if they did cast either ScarJo or Emma Stone, it would actually make sense this time around because it is about someone being in Yellowface. So that would be like the ultimate joke if they did pull that off. And if they, I feel like ScarJo might not agree to it, but Emma Stone seems like she has enough of a sense of humor to be okay with that. But this is pretty cool. You know, I think Babel has also been optioned, right? So there's a lot of potential R.F. Kuang projects in the works. Yellowface obviously is the most producible because this one requires the least amount of special effects of all her books. So I wouldn't be surprised if this series gets off the ground like pretty quickly. Karen Kusama is a really great choice to direct because she's done a lot of like really feminist forward thrillers. So I really love that they're leaning into that aspect.
I'm excited to see it. Out of like all the books that we have read for book club, like I feel like this is a perfect fit. Yeah. This is probably the most perfect fit for screen adaptation.
Who do you think should play Athena?
You know what's really strange? I always picture Athena as Rebecca herself. So I haven't even like thought of like an Asian actress who would actually play
I feel like Athena. That would be a pretty good like cameo because she's only in, well, I mean, that's not true. Her ghost is, you see her ghost throughout the story. So she's going to have to like be in it. But, you know, Athena has like a British accent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we need to find like an up-and-coming UK actor to take the part.
You know what would be really funny if they got Gemma Chan to play Athena?
That would be funny. I feel like Gemma Chan is a little like...
No, she's too old for the character.
Yeah.
But I just think it would be funny because Constance Wu is involved in this project, right? So it would be funny to see like Crazy Rich Asians people being brought onto a project. I think a good candidate would be Yeren Ha, who has been cast as Sophie Peck in the upcoming Bridgerton season. Because I'm like, you actually have a British accent. You could probably pull it off.
Well, Yeren Ha is Australian, but she'll be in practice.
Yeah, she'll be able to
right?
do it.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, very, very excited. It's still early days, but to see like a director attached to the project, especially a high profile director and some high profile producers, I think that's a pretty good sign that the production itself is in a healthy place. So hopefully we'll get to see Yellowface in the flesh in the next year or so. Looking forward to that. And congrats to Rebecca on her success. Looking forward to both this and the eventual Babel adaptation as well. And yeah, that'll do it for this edition of Books and Boba's mid-month book news check-in. Thank you so much for listening, and thanks to Rira for compiling all of our book news and publishing announcements. Before we go, Rira, why don't you remind us what we are reading for book club for Spooky Month 2024?
Yeah, so we are reading The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Kao for this month, and it is a novella with some fairy tale elements and some spooky elements as well, so perfect read for Halloween. For those of you who have already read the book or are in the middle of reading the book, we are discussing it on Discord, so we would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, we're already getting some feedback on Discord from our book club members, and I'm excited to jump into it. Seems like it's going to be a lot of spooks, a lot of creeps, and some, unsettling elements. But on the bright side, it is a novella, so it will be over quickly. But yeah, looking forward to discussing this with you all at the end of the month. And for those of you who aren't Patreon supporters, you can still send us your feedback on the book on our Goodreads forums, which is open to everybody. But yeah, with that, thank you so much for listening to our October 2024 mid-month check-in, and we'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hey Brian, did you go to Saturday school as a kid?
I sure did. Did you?
Totally.
Well, at our podcast, Saturday School, we don't teach a language, but we pass along the culture that we do know.
And that's Asian American pop culture.
Ada's a journalist, and I'm a professor and film festival programmer.
We've watched a lot of great Asian American movies, and we want you to watch them too. Come listen to us as we look back at the pioneering films that have led us to today.